Welcome to the Mind Solution podcast with Sarah Maud. The Mind Solution podcast is for leaders like you who are passionate about well-being in the workplace because you understand that a strong, resilient and happy workforce is the key to your organisation's success. The Mind Solution podcast is here to help you. So join us every week where we'll share with you powerful insights, strategies and know-how to ensure that your people and your organisation are truly thriving from the inside out. Hi there and welcome. And I'm here to talk to you today about bridging the gap between high performance and well-being. Now, when I worked in human resources, there was a big focus on high performance. If I'm honest with you, it was almost a buzzword at the time. And working for a number of high-profile organisations such as British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, what we did is, as an organisation, we decided, what does high performance look like? What does good look like? What does great look like? And what does absolutely amazing look like? And we would create a competency framework that we could set out to people. This is what we expect of you. This is what we need you to demonstrate in terms of your behaviour for us to measure high performance and for individuals to know what was expected. Now that would make sense logically, wouldn't it? That actually we need to be able to go out to people and we need to be able to set the standard of expectation. We need to be able to communicate to people, what does high performance look like? And as an organisation, what are those behaviours that we need people to demonstrate? And it could be any number of things. It might be some more common things like teamwork and building solid commercial relationships. It could be around influencing, it could be about communication, it could be about those kind of skills that we need most of our employees to be able to demonstrate. And then again, depending on the type of organisation that you work in, it might be some very specific competencies that we needed people to be able to demonstrate. And people would usually at their annual review, their appraisal, they would measure, how well do I feel that I've performed? Where's the examples of my behaviour against that competency framework? And you'd sit down with your manager and you would go through that process and you'd come out with a score. Now that all seems perfectly rational, perfectly logical. But what's really interesting to reflect on is what was lacking was anything to support people being able to behave in a certain way. What was lacking was any focus or investment in well-being and resilience. Now, what do I mean by well-being resilience? Because it's a huge label and it means lots of different things to different people. So again, kind of going back 10, 12 years ago when I worked in HR, well-being at the time was very much just focused on employee assistance programs and occupational health. You might have got a bit of free fruit, there might have been some subsidised gym membership, but that was about it. That was about as leading edge as it got. And for the leaders of the organisation, there might be something around leadership development. But again, it was very much focused on behaviour. Now, the reason that I raise this topic is because as a psychotherapist, and having worked with so many different individuals on a one-to-one level, what became very apparent to me very, very quickly is that behaviour is the last thing that we really need to focus on when it comes to high performance. Now, I know that you might be thinking, what? that doesn't make sense. So bear with me and all will be revealed. If we take a big step back and we think about the way that the mind works. Now, some of you might have heard this before, but we have a conscious mind and we've got an unconscious mind. And your conscious mind is responsible for pretty much less than 5% of your behaviours, your emotional responses, and your thinking. So the role of the unconscious mind is to take care of all of those thinking responses, emotional responses, behavioural responses, takes care of your physiology. It makes sure that you're breathing, which actually we really need it to do because we're usually too busy answering emails and checking Instagram and doing any number of things to remember to breathe. So our unconscious mind is amazing in that sense. Now, just because something is unconscious, it doesn't mean that we're not aware of it. It just means that the unconscious mind is running the show. It's running the program. It's running the structure that you have created in your mind when you came into this world. So if we think about behaviour, what we need in order to change our behaviour, in order to achieve a level of behaviour that is that high performance, then we need to be able to do two key things. We need to be able to regulate our emotions. Now, this is huge, absolutely huge, because I'm sure listening to this, if I asked you to think of the last time that your emotions hijacked you, they absolutely hijacked you, they had you kind of running around, acting from a place that really wasn't helpful, really wasn't supportive, was not high performance, then I'm sure that there's probably a couple of memories that can immediately come to your mind. So if we are in a place where our emotions are regularly hijacking us, that we're experiencing what psychologists refer to as amygdala hijacking. So your amygdala is part of your limbic brain, it's part of the fight and flight response, then we're not going to be able to perform in a way that is akin to high performance. So if people don't know how to regulate their emotional responses, then high performance, we're not really going to be able to consistently demonstrate that level of high performance. But even more, if we take another step back and we go, okay, well, what creates our emotional responses? Well, what creates our emotional responses is thought. And the thoughts that you think, and we're told that we have about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. There are certain thoughts that you have every single day that you don't act on. So the decision to, do I have a chicken sandwich or an egg and cress sandwich for my lunch? You might not really have much emotion attached to those. So it's just a thought that comes and it goes. A thought that, oh, that person looks interesting on your way to work. Again, is just a passing thought. The thought that, oh, I like the look of that car, or I like the look of something that you've passed in a shop window, is a thought. But it's a thought that comes and goes. You don't necessarily act on that thought unless you really like what you've seen in a shop window, and then you might act on that thought and actually go and check it out in the shop. So we have these 60, 70,000 thoughts a day that a lot of those just come and go. But we also have those thoughts which lead to another thought, which lead to another thought, which lead to another thought, which build momentum and have us caught in a huge spider web of thoughts that we can't necessarily think our way out of. And those thoughts can generate an emotional response. They can generate feelings. So, for example, if somebody in the team has done something and you start thinking, oh, they always do this. Oh, why can't they ever get anything right? Oh, I'm going to have to pick this up again. You get lost in a whole train of thoughts which can create any number of emotions, from feeling frustrated to feeling angry. And that's not really very helpful. Now, if you know how to identify that, if you know how to recognize that, and you know how to regulate that, how to release those thoughts and those feelings, great. But if you don't, if you stay stuck on that train of thought and you stay stuck in that emotional response, is that going to help you when it comes to high performance behaviours? Absolutely not. And you don't need me to tell you that. So when I go back to what I was saying at the beginning about bridging that gap between high performance and well-being, then if we really want our employees to be able to not only reach a level of high performance, but to sustain consistently a level of high performance, then we need to be bridging the gap about what we teach people. Now, the word well-being is a bit of an overarching term. And as I said, it can mean different things to different people. So is well-being teaching people about the way that the mind works, or actually is that high performance coaching? Is well-being teaching people about how to regulate their emotional responses, or is that leadership coaching and training? Well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter what we call it. What matters is what, as an organisation, you're investing your time and your energy and your money into that is going to help to achieve that consistent level of high performance throughout your organisation, throughout your people. And you know, I see a lot of organisations that are starting to do far more around this. But again, if they don't really understand what contributes to high performance behaviour, then they might end up investing in wellbeing initiatives which look good on the surface, but are not going to create the impact that you're looking for. And this is where having a really well thought out wellbeing strategy is going to work for you. This is where working with somebody that is actually not only just skilled when it comes to wellbeing in the workplace, but knowledgeable about what makes people tick. Because I know, going back to my days in HR, none of this was really being done. And if it was being done, then it certainly wasn't on my radar. It certainly wasn't being talked about. But when I think about it now, I'm like, wow, no wonder we couldn't get people to perform and behave in the way that we wanted them to. Because if people can't change the way that they think, if they can't regulate their emotional responses, if they lack the level of self-awareness that's needed to be able to create those internal shifts, then a lot of the time and energy that was spent on different training activities and different training courses only would have ever got very incremental shifts. And I know, working with some organisations, that thousands, and I mean tens of thousands, were focused on things like leadership training. But if that leadership training, for example, wasn't backed up with one-to-one leadership coaching, then again, how do we create those shifts? Because if we want people to demonstrate a level of behaviour, then those shifts have to come from the inside out. And it's often those shifts that occur when people not only have that level of self-awareness, but where they're in an environment where they're given an opportunity to reflect, when they can create those insights, they can get a sense of clarity that will naturally get their mind firing and wiring in new sequences and new combinations. So when it comes to bridging the gap between high performance and well-being, what the most leading edge organizations are doing is they're really recognizing this. They're recognizing that, having a nice well-being week where we tell people, what healthy looks like isn't going to have the impact that you want it to when it comes to consistently achieving high performance. And we speak to so many organizations that say, we've got a really high-paced organization. We've got a really fast-paced organization. And again, if you want people to consistently experience a level of high performance in an environment like that, we've got to give them the knowledge of how to do that from the inside out. Because yes, there's a lot of things that we can do to support our health and well-being, like moving, going for a walk, staying hydrated, drinking at least 2 litres of water a day because your brain's made of about 70% water. We can teach people about nutrition. We can teach people any number of things that will come under that well-being umbrella. But the key focus is emotional regulation and teaching them about the principle of thought and how to change their thoughts, because it's the thoughts that generate the emotion that then influence the behaviour. So I hope that has bridged something in your own mind when you're thinking about what is it that our organisation needs to get people to a level of high performance. And if we can be of any help with that at all to you in the form of leadership coaching and training, wellbeing consultancy, or management mental health and resilience training, then do get in touch with us at info@themindsolution.com. But for now, have a wonderful day.